two people that need no introduction, you might say, to the community of Gladstone, Bob and Eileen Clarke. Last year, we were supposed to do an interview with Bob and Eileen for their 25 years of serving the community with their business in Gladstone. And somehow or other, we ran out of time, or they ran out of time, and we didn't get it done. So here we are now in their 26th year. So let's go back, folks, to 26 years ago. Who wants to tell us how it all began and just when did it begin?
Probably Bob should start because he started on his own at that time.
26 years ago, I bought John and Jean's Hammond's business, and then shortly after, Eileen and I were married, and we've been running the business since.
And you bought both the funeral home and the
funeral home and the flower and gift shop, and that was where Diane's beauty salon is now.
Oh yes, used to be Kennedy's Meat Market.
Before that?
Yeah.
Actually, the actual meat cooler was our flour cooler.
Oh, is that right?
It was the same place in the store. It served as the flour cooler, what had originally been their meat cooler.
So that worked out very well.
It did for us.
Yes. Yeah. So what made you decide to go for this?
Well, I guess they wanted to sell their business, and I thought it was a good opportunity, and I guess that's mainly...
That's how it all began?
Yes.
And you had been working for John and Jean for how long, Bob?
I had worked for them for about 2 years, and then I had worked in Brandon for half a year, and I was working actually in Brandon when I took over.
Oh,
so
I see.
I worked for them, and then while I was in Brandon, that's when I had taken over.
So where had you taken your training then? Under them or in Brandon?
No, I'd taken it with John and some in Brandon, and actually it wasn't quite finished yet when I took over, and just a matter of finishing the exam when I had taken over.
So it was a big decision, but you people were young and full of vigor and eager to start your life out on a busy schedule. What about the ambulance? Did you have the ambulance business then?
Yeah, actually had, at that time I had the ambulance also for about maybe 2 years, and 2 or 3 years, then we quit that. That was too much work, too demanding.
I would think.
Yeah.
I would think.
By that time, too, we had 2 small children to add to the whole load, so trying to do everything just got to be a bit much. Plus there was government regulations coming in at that time, too, that were more demanding also, and we just felt we didn't want to continue on with it. Yeah.
Well, the ambulance business is certainly a very demanding thing in itself, let alone your other business.
Yeah, and you had to have qualified help, and that was becoming more of a requirement, having qualified help. And we'd been really lucky at that point. Jim and Betty Morris were here, and Betty was a practical nurse, and Jim had been active with John Hammond as well, helping. And you know, at that point we had a lot of different people to help, but they were planning on moving at that time too, so we knew we would be without help. So, yeah.
And not really wanting to train people.
Well, and no time to train people, you know, and being not fully qualified. I mean, Bob had a lot of years of experience, and I helped out when I could, but that was one facet of the business I didn't enjoy at all. I really did not want to work with that. It's something I'm not comfortable with, and I didn't enjoy it at all.
So had you worked at all for John and Jean?
Actually, I did. I worked as a babysitter for them initially when their kids were younger, and then in my high school years, I did work some in the gift shop for them part-time as well, but just to that extent.
But
Yeah.
so you were a little bit familiar.
Oh, I was quite familiar with
Yeah.
the home and the business at that point. Yeah, I knew, you know, what was involved there. That's for sure. Yeah.
What was the exact time? Do you remember the takeover date?
November 1st, 1972.
Yeah.
So you've just got a few months then to put in before you have the 26th
26th, yeah.
anniversary.
Yeah, it comes up quicker each year. Passes by a little quicker. Yeah.
So what was it like starting in business back then? Because our economy has changed so much, you know, like investment economy has changed, banking and loans and marketing and purchasing, everything has changed tremendously in that span of time. How do you compare it back then to what it is now?
Well, it's hard to go back because when we initially took over, actually, at that time, John Hammond, you know, I think Bob probably wasn't familiar with the borrowing, you know, type of business at that time, and actually John Hammond arranged all the financing for Bob to purchase the businesses at that time.
Isn't that great?
He completely arranged everything, both with the lawyers and the financing with the credit unions, etc. And if he hadn't have done that, it's not likely that, you know, there wouldn't have been money available. But with his, you know, he had his expertise to make it all happen, and he wanted to move, so he did want it to happen. I guess he felt confident that Bob could take over for him, so because two young people with absolutely not a dime, their chances of borrowing money, even at that time, was pretty slim. We were what you would consider a very high risk. It was.
Well,
Yeah.
Actually, I would think at that time it was harder to get money, like maybe 10 years down the road, then people started, banks started loaning money out more freely, didn't they?
Well, at one point, but you still have to have some type of collateral or down payments and that, which we had nothing. There was, you know, there was nothing to put down, so John completely looked after everything and made it happen for us. We have our future to, or, you know, our past to thank him for, because he literally arranged everything.
Well, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Not to mention the fact of having to deal with that when you're not familiar with it. You know, that in itself would have been a bit of trauma.
Well, at that time, Bob was doing it himself. We weren't married until March of '73, so I mean, the business end of it at that point, he was completely on his own. Yeah. At that time, I was an employee only.
Did the paychecks come through regularly?
Yes, they did. Yes,
well,
they did.
That would be a good indication.
Yeah, that was the only time period that they did. They soon ended after March.
So, and the business was a much smaller scale at that time, wasn't it? Like your giftware and flowers business. Especially the giftware was much smaller, wasn't it?
Yeah, because we had a lot smaller space, plus we didn't have nearly as many lines of giftware as we do now. It was probably more basically flowers and a little bit of giftware.
And yeah, that's the way I recall it, that it wasn't as extensive then. And that in itself would make it easier to get into it gradually, rather, you know, make your growth a little bit easier.
Yeah. At that time, about the only giftware there was, I know we had Pinwheel Crystal at the time and the Royal Albert China. But very soon, when we had taken over, within the first year, we had got in cards, like we got in with the Hallmark Card Company. There was no cards in that shop at the time.
Is that right?
Maybe a dozen watches and a little bit of jewelry.
Is that right?
There was very little giftware. Some pottery at that time. Like the Caters, the Beautiful Plains pottery, I guess it was called at the time. And some electrical appliances, and a few clocks, maybe 6 or 8 clocks, and that was about it.
Wow.
Inventory was not a big deal at that time. Taking inventory wasn't too big a deal.
You didn't have to spend days
No,
counting.
no, not at all.